Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 939. My opponent started off with e4 here and I went e5. And then he surprised me with f4, the king's gambit. A classical opening, although not so popular anymore. The main move here is actually just to take it, and that's the way I used to play, but I get kind of tired of trying to remember all those crazy lines. So I've been looking for different lines to play against it. You can play d5, the Falk-Bear counter gambit, but that is another complicated system. So I've been trying to learn this bishop c5 move. And I might say that while this f4 move is not very popular at the top level, you still see it at the club level. I had this in a game just a couple weeks ago. So still something you need to be prepared for at least. So bishop c5 is what I'm trying to play these days. And he continued with the main move, knight f3. If white plays knight c3 here, it also black also continues with d6, and it transposes usually into the same kind of position. So he puts pressure on the pawn, and I defend it. I do want to point out that in this position, he can't take the pawn because of queen to h4 check. So that actually wins the rook in the corner right after he blocks the check. Or the king gets in big trouble if he tries to run. So blocking the check, the queen comes here with a check and picks up the rook in the corner. So this is just losing for white. So that's why you can get away with this bishop c5 move. Get the bishop outside the pawn chain. And while the bishop is here, it's making it difficult for white to castle. So you're kind of cutting against white's plans here with the king's gambit, which was a quick castle and getting the rook on the f-file. Okay, so knight f3 is a normal continuation, and then you defend the center with d6, and then f takes e5. You can't actually win a pawn this way, although it's okay. It doesn't lose material either. All these positions are about even, so I wouldn't really call this a mistake, although the opening book gives it a question mark. Anyway, the normal moves here are bishop to c4, knight to c3. And, well, just to show this would often transpose, like bishop c4, the knight would come out attacking the e-pawn, this knight would come back to defend, and then this knight comes out. And we get this kind of position, which could have been reached in a different move order if he had brought the knight out first. And then I attack that pawn anyway, and then he brings the bishop out, and then I play knight here. So it could happen in either order, and then white usually pauses to defend the pawn. Another way of playing for white at this point is this move here, c3. This is actually liked by the chess engine for white. And the normal response here is bishop to g4, although I was looking at knight f6 to see if I could get a similar kind of position, and it seems like I can. He can push this pawn forward, or he can take first. I guess taking is the book line here. And then after knight takes, you play queen e7, and you still round up this pawn. That's kind of one of the points of this system, is that even though it looks like you may be losing the e-pawn at some point, you always get your opponent's e-pawn back. And this is about an equal position too. So all these moves are okay for both sides, playable. Anyway, he took first, I took back, and then he didn't continue, but well, actually knight here, knight takes pawn right here would run into queen to h4 check again, so that would not be good. But in general, yeah, it's difficult for white to actually ever grab that e-pawn. So I continue on with knight f6. Now, if he takes, I can take back. If he takes an e-pawn, I can take an e-pawn too. And let's see, he played knight c3. I played knight c6. We're kind of going in and out of the opening book. We're just in a rare line. He plays d3, I castle, and he goes knight a4. So knight a4 is an interesting move. It's hitting this bishop. He was probably getting annoyed by the fact that he couldn't castle. And then I played bishop e7, and we're just out of the opening book after that. But if I were to go with the bishop b6, he would trade it off, and he would get to castle anyway. I looked at this with the chess engine, and bishop to e7 seems to be a fine move. So both sides have not really done anything wrong, and the position is still around even, which is what you would expect from the king's gambit. It doesn't really give an advantage to white. It just gives new and different positions. Anyway, he castles here, and I play a6. I'm preparing this fork here, so he has to respond. He dropped his knight back. Then I lifted my queen up. The chess engine did not like queen d6, although when I looked at other moves, it didn't seem there was anything that really led to a huge advantage for black, but it did prefer bishop to g4, which makes sense. You're developing your minor pieces first before you're getting your queen out. But queen to d6 seems to be a playable move. And now he goes for the pin, and I play knight to d4. So yeah, I guess when I played queen d6, I was thinking about defending that pawn finally, and well, it worked. I mean, I wanted to be able to play this move without having to worry about that pawn, so I was able to get this move in, and it seems to be okay. And now at this point, white can play pretty much any move except the move that he played, knight to d5. But this just loses right off the bat. So if you have forgotten the tactic from watching the original video, or if you didn't see the original video, it's black to play and win. See if you can spot the idea here. Okay, pause the video if you want some time to think about it. I'm giving the answer away now. So the basic idea is to take this knight, and if bishop takes bishop, then you can take back with the knight, and you've won 2 pieces, and white has only won 1 piece. So that's a mechanism that you should always think about whenever you see some material up here, and you have some kind of pin going in, or some piece out here that you have potentially some tactic against. Now, I started off by playing knight takes f3, because to make this tactic really effective, you need to have a piece out here that's undefended. But you can actually start with knight takes d5. Okay, so first you can rule out bishop takes bishop, because you just take back and you're a piece up. So that's not the move. You can also rule out knight takes, because after knight takes, then bishop takes bishop. And let's see, you have a piece hanging, but he has a piece hanging, and you're a piece up. So there's no tempo move that he has to escape with the knight. So you're a piece up in that line. And then lastly, let's see, if you try to take this knight with the pawn, then you can throw a knight takes knight with check. It's very important that that goes with check. And however he takes back, then you grab the bishop and you stay a move up. So anyway, the knight takes f3 check is an important part of that, because it makes sure this bishop is a loose piece at the end. I played this first. Oh, let's back up to the game. He played knight d5, and I played knight takes f3 first, just eliminating the defender of the bishop. Just I found that simpler, but either way works. And then I take here, and once again we have this mechanism. The bishop is hitting an undefended piece. If he retreats it, I just move my knight away, and I've gained a piece because I took something here to start with. And if he takes, then I take back with the knight and stay a piece up. So that's what he did. He took, and oh no, he took this piece, but then I take his bishop. So that all works out to be the same. And then he played bishop takes f7 check. So he had thought about this and came up with a clever idea. So it's possible to go wrong here. For example, if I were to just take back here, he can mate. There is a mate in 3 here. Boom, and it's all over because I haven't developed my bishop yet. So this rook is not defending the back rank. So that would be a quick end to the game. But I can just move my king away. And so I'm okay after this. Let's see, he tried queen h5. I just dropped my bishop back to f6, getting it out of trouble and trying to isolate his bishop. He goes rook f3, go bishop to e6. I want to trade off the pieces around my king. I also wanted to make sure that this rook is defended when he's going to double rooks here, and I have to make sure that's adequately defended. I'm going to defend it with the queen and the rook, or maybe the bishop and the rook. 2 defenders, 2 attackers, and I should be okay. Let's see, he played bishop g6. I almost fell for the mate in 1, but I found it soon enough and played h6. There were other defenses there too, but you got to notice the threat. Anyway, he goes rook a, f1, doubling here. I was wondering if there was ever any opportunity for him to sacrifice the exchange here, but it never worked out. I always had enough defenders on that square, and queen to e7 keeps that up. So if he takes with one rook, I take back. If he takes with the other rook, I can take with the queen. So I managed to avoid any damage that way. He tried bishop f5. I just start trading off these pieces. And I went queen f7 to offer the queen trade. And he dropped back. The chess engine actually prefers to trade queens, but this endgame, I mean, he's a piece up, and my bishop is pinned at. I mean, he's a pawn up, and my bishop is pinned at the moment. But I can unpin with. Well, I could move this rook away, or I could move this rook here and the king here. That would also unpin, and his extra pawn on the queen side is not going to be enough to compensate for the bishop. So, going into a losing endgame is not the way to play this. Tried to increase the pressure on the f-file, and I just start getting things off the f-file. Let's see, tried h4 here, went bishop e7. So now I drop back at a time when the queen here is in the middle of this row of attackers, and my bishop is defending here. So rook takes, queen takes, bishop takes, rook takes. He gets a check at the end, but my king steps up, and it'll just be a rook versus a queen. So just material up for me. If he had these pieces arranged the other way around with the rook in front and the queen behind, then he could actually win the bishop there. So you have to be careful when there's this tripling on the file. You need to have 3 defenders in general, but in this case 2 defenders was sufficient. Let's see, he pushed on with g4. I just traded. It gives him this advanced pawn here, but it doesn't seem to be too much he can do about it, and it just relieves the pressure on my king side. Bring my queen over here, offer another trade, and he did trade this time, and we go into an endgame. Best play in the endgame was rook e1, after which I could defend the pawn, and then he might try and march these queenside pawns forward, but this is also a winning endgame for black. Anyway, he went king g2, and we can just kind of step through the rest of the game. I think nothing really too surprising happened here. He did keep fighting, but this is a technically not particularly difficult endgame to win with an extra piece. Just have to avoid getting trapped and avoid letting his pieces get too far advanced. And here he resigned. The bishop is defending this pawn, so this pawn can never go through. This pawn can never go through, and this pawn is marching. So an easy way to convert, even if I was low on time. But anyway, a fun game overall, and hopefully you learned a nice lesson with that tactic, and I will see you next time. Bye.